want to find that drive and focus that has you locked in and on fire every single day, my book, The Mirror of Motivation, will do it for you. I bought a copy for you. You take care of the shipping. The book is free. Click the link down there. I got you.
DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. This is the go-getter energy that we all have experienced when we make a decision to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all of these mental game elements together, and what you get is the mindset, the method, the philosophy, the book, the show called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to assess people. The saying goes that you have probably heard is when a person shows you who they are, believe them. Well, today's show is about how to look at people, and when you're looking at people, actually seeing who they actually are, and then based on what you see, dealing with those people accordingly. Because even though we would all like life to just be completely 100% fair and everyone to have the same opportunity and everyone to be operating on a level playing field, we all know that that's not the way life works. You've been alive long enough, if you can understand my words, you've been alive long enough to understand that that's not the way things go, and that things are not going to ever become in such a way that we have this utopian lifestyle, utopian community, environment where everything is just equal and everybody has the same chances and everybody has to go through the same stuff. Doesn't work that way. There are some areas in which things are fair that way, some contained areas, but life as a whole is not like that, and everyone's not the same. So it makes sense that everything's not going to be everything's not going to be fair, and everything's not going to be the same because every person is not the same. So we need to learn. We got to train ourselves, since we all know that what we talk about here on the show is not about what other people need to do or what other situations or circumstances need to do, because we can't control things that are outside of ourselves. We can only control ourselves. So we look at what's going on outside of ourselves, such as other people, situations, circumstances. We look at those things, and once we understand what's going on out there, at least as best we can, we then always bring it back to ourselves. Okay, so based on what we see out there, what can I do about this? How can I change? What edits can I make? How can I make my own adjustments to make these things work for me? And that's how you learn how to deal with these situations. So that's what today's topic is. The topic, once again, is how to assess people. Point number one, understand that people rarely change that much. People can change, but they don't change that much. I mean, if you look at yourself, a lot of things about you may have changed over the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years. Maybe you dress a little bit differently. Maybe you have a different circle of friends. Maybe you have a family now. You didn't have one before. Maybe you work at a different job than you worked at before. Maybe you're doing a whole lot better than you were 6 years ago. Maybe you're doing a lot worse, significantly worse than you were 8 years ago. Maybe you feel different, you present yourself differently, maybe you use different language, maybe you have become mentally sharper because you've been listening to the show Work on Your Game every day for as long as you've been listening to it. So yes, there are some cosmetic changes that can happen within you. There are some changes that can happen with your personality. There are some changes that can happen as far as the way that you think, the way that you talk, and the actions that you take, and the company that you keep. Those things can change, but down at your core, the core essence of who you are as a person, that hasn't changed at all. Since you were 5 years old, it has not changed. Even though the things that maybe everybody can see about you, see on you and in you, those change, who you are at your core does not change. And it's the same thing with everybody else out there. And the reason that matters, the reason why this is the first point, is this. A person can gain skills. They can get smarter, they can get better at what they do, and we can do all these things too. Work on our games, get smarter, get better, improve our performance. We want to do all those things, but fundamentally, at our base level as who we are as people, we're not changing at all. We're still going to be that person. You're going to be the same person who has whatever character traits, character flaws, things that you are proud of, things that you're not so proud of. Those things are not going away no matter how much makeup you try to put on them. No matter how many skills you try to cover them up with, they're still going to be there one way or another. And a trained eye will be able to see those things in you. The good news for all of us is that most people don't have trained eyes. The reason why most people don't have trained eyes is because most people are so focused on themselves that they don't pay that much attention to another person, even when you're looking right at them, even when you're talking to them, even when you're listening to them, even when you're reading their book, even when you're listening to their audio show right now, pumping into your eardrums. You're not paying that much attention to the other person. Everything is reflecting back on how does it matter to you. So why this point matters for you is this: you need to have trained eyes. Trained eyes will allow you to see the essence of who a person is despite their external presentation. Some people get really, really good. Maybe you know some people who fit this description. They get really, really good at controlling their external presentation, the way they present themselves, the way they talk about themselves, the way that they talk to other people, the things that they want you to know about them as opposed to the things that you may never know about them. Most of us, actually, we get really good at these things. By the time we're in adolescence, we get really good at showing people what we want them to see and not showing people what we don't want them to see. And everyone has different levels of this, how much they want people to see and how much they don't. And usually we have different levels of it based on different areas of our lives. I'm sure you can see that. You go on social media, you see plenty of this. People who love to show you a whole lot of one area, but not much of another area, or at least as far as you know. So we all are really good at this. And since people rarely change, we're still on our first point here. Understand that while people can get better at what they do, or they can become more shiny on the outside, they can get a shinier exterior to however they present themselves on the outside, whatever is at the essence of them is always going to be exactly the same. And the trained eye will notice this. That's why you got to develop trained eyes. You got to learn how to pay attention. People can be trained and taught as far as developing skills, working on their games, but human beings do not really get rehabilitated. Any of you, I don't know, maybe some people listening to this have ever been to rehab. You've been to rehabilitation, whether it was for something going on in your mind, some action that you were taking, like gambling or using drugs, something in your mind, like rehab for, I don't know, you could hiring a coach. You can consider that rehabilitation, rehabilitating the way you think. You can consider this show to be rehabilitation. If you've ever been physically injured, you will have to go do physical rehabs. If a basketball player tears his ACL, he goes to rehab to get his knees better so he can play basketball again. That, what they call rehabilitation, or maybe for a certain behavior, you can be rehabilitated, but the person themselves does not get rehabilitated. The essence of that person is still the essence of that person. I heard someone say that someone told them that they had a very, what was the word? I can't remember the word this guy described himself as. That he had a very addictive, that was the word, addictive personality. He would just get addicted to things. So for a while he was addicted to drugs, and he would just take all kinds of drugs because he had this addictive personality. What he learned to do, though, was get off the drugs and get addicted to success, get addicted to personal development, get addicted to helping other people. So the same addictive personality did not go away. He just learned to channel it in a different way. I wouldn't call that rehabilitation. That's just a skill. That's just training. That's just teaching. That's just that person deciding to do something different. The only people going to rehab, they got to decide to go through the rehab. Now, just because somebody puts you in there doesn't mean you're going to go through it and listen and follow it. I've had myriad people come to me over the years asking me something in some way or another if they could work for me or work with me in some way. And I've given some people jobs because they seemed like they could do something that could actually help me, and maybe I had something based on whatever they said they could do that I thought would be beneficial for me. And then many of these people, believe it or not, they would either half-ass their work, they would ask for more money, whatever we decided on. In a short period of time, they would start asking me for more money because they felt like, I don't know, they felt like they had proven themselves when I didn't feel like they had proven anything. And often I had people quit on me unexpectedly, just say, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go do something different after a very short period of time before they'd even proved themselves. And then later on, I've had some of these same people come back to me later on after they quit. After they hadn't proved themselves, but they were asking for more money. After they had done a half-assed job and didn't stick around for long, come back later on asking if they could work for me again. The answer is always no. The reason why the answer is always no, it has nothing to do with the individual person, because I said I'm talking about multiple people here. I'm not talking about any one person. The reason why the answer is always no is because that person has already shown me enough. See, if you showed me that you're going to give a half-ass effort, if you showed me that you're going to ask for more than what you have proven to be worth, if you showed me that you will just up and quit unexpectedly because you're not getting the fun and games and the carnival ride that you thought you were going to get by working for me, then I already know enough about you. I already know what I need to know about you. You've shown me enough. Any of you who have in ex-employee, maybe an employee that you fired or an employee who quit in circumstances that weren't so friendly, or maybe an ex-business partner and things went south and didn't end the right way, or an ex-intimate partner or an ex-friend. Any of you who have exes and anywhere in your life, they're exes for a reason. All right, there's a reason why that relationship didn't work out. There's a reason why that business partnership ended. There's a reason why that person quit that job or you got fired from that job, and you probably wouldn't do too well going back to it. You're probably going to end up with the exact same essence of who that person is, exact same essence of that problem is going to show itself again. It may not show itself at first, because again, we can change how we look on the outside. We can change our outside presentation very easily, all of us as humans. And since most people are not paying attention, we can fool a lot of people with this. But the essence of who you are, if it didn't work out with somebody before, that same essence is going to show itself again. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to assess people. Values over skills. This is an important one here. In the business world, in the work world, any of you who's ever hired an employee, any of you who works in management, let's say in retail management, is a good place that we can use as an example here, since everyone has experienced the retail experience. Even if you don't work in retail, you've been into a retail store. So anywhere where you get an item and you pay for it right there in the store, and then you walk out with the item, whether that be McDonald's, the Gap, the Apple store, all of those are retail. Everyone here has experienced some form of retail business, right? In retail management, they tell you to hire for attitude and you train for skill. In other words, when you find a person who has the right type of attitude, the right type of values, which we're talking about here today, you can teach them how to do the thing, because when they have the right values, they will learn. Now, the person with great skills but not the right values, they don't have the right attitude, all right, they become even more dangerous to you because they're so skilled. They can poison the whole group. So using retail as an example, since we all been in retail, even if you haven't worked there, any of you ever gone into a retail business, whether that be a CVS, a restaurant, the movies, and you dealt with some jerk employee? They were working there, man. They had the uniform on and everything. They were on the clock, but it seemed like they really didn't want to be there. They seemed to not really care about the job. They were not very nice to you as a customer, even though you hadn't barely said a word to them yet. Maybe even seemed to not even want to be at work. You ever dealt with somebody at work who just didn't seem to want to be there? Maybe they got up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe they hate the job. Maybe they're just a jerk and they're always like that and they just happen to be there that day. But everyone here has dealt with someone like that before as a customer, right? We all have. So the question then becomes, here's the question. Why do these people still have jobs? They seem to not like their job. They're not nice to the customers. They seem to not even want to be at work, even though they're at work, even though they're getting paid. They seem to be treating the job as if the job is doing them a disservice, even though the job is doing them a service. How do these people maintain their jobs? How do they even get hired in the first place? How does this happen? I'm going to tell you how. Some business owners or some managers out there, people who have the responsibility of hiring, they say something along the lines of, maybe you've heard this quote, good people are hard to find. You ever heard that? Well, I'm going to tell you that it's true. Good people are hard to find. But hard does not mean impossible. Good people are not impossible to find. It's just hard to find. I heard a wise person once say, as I told you at the top of this point, hire for attitude, train for skill. A person with the right principles and the right mindset will always find ways to make themselves a valuable individual. I'm going to say that sentence one more time, because this applies to anything. And we've done whole episodes on this point right here. Say it once more. A person with the right principles and the right mindset, we're talking about values here, they will always find ways to make themselves valuable. So you could take a person who has no skill, no knowledge, no experience whatsoever in the particular field in which you work. And if you put them in the room with everybody else, they will find a way to make themselves valuable. Why is that? Is it because they're just an expert at learning new skills? Not necessarily. Is it because they had this skill and they lied to you about not having it and they just wanted to, trick you so they could get in and actually show off that they had the skills so you would have low expectations? No, probably not. The reason why the person with the right attitude and the right mindset will always make themselves valuable is because they have the right attitude and the right mindset. The right attitude and the right mindset, they are relative terms, is the type of person, what I'm describing here, is the type of person who has a can-do attitude, the type of person who is a person of value. And here's the thing about people of value, ladies and gentlemen, they always find a way to deliver some of it. That's how you become a person of value. Let me get that point one more time, just in case you weren't listening. A person of value always finds a way to deliver value. All right, that's how they become a person of value. So if you want to know if you have any people of value around you, all you got to do is ask yourself this question. Does this person always find a way to deliver value when they're around? If the answer is yes, and it should be an immediate yes, that's a person of value. If you got to think about it, then the person is not a person of value. Simple as that. Now, once you do that and you go through all the people that you know, you'll notice that the majority of them are not people of value. This is why good people are hard to find. So you see how all this works together. Napoleon Hill said, a person with the wrong attitude is all the more dangerous to any group because the smarter they are, the more skilled they are, the easier they'll be able to poison everybody else because they're so smart. Because they have this now. They know how they can poison everyone else because they are so intelligent. If you're going to have a person with low values and low skills, at least make them a dumb individual because then they won't know how to poison everybody else. But if they're smart, they have the skills, and then they don't have the right attitude, all right, you got to get rid of that person quick because they'll destroy everything from within, like termites. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to assess people. Just like we talked about yesterday, this third point is look at the data and not just your emotions. But we're talking about it from a different angle today. Yesterday was about actually looking at the numbers. Any of you, again, you work in online marketing, you run advertisements, you're in accounting, anything that deals with numbers, there's data that you can look at that can point you in the direction of where the successes are happening and where the problems exist. What I'm talking about here today is looking at the data and not just your emotions from this angle, that you're going to look at your track record, the track record of the people whom you're assessing. So when you're assessing another person, don't just go off of, damn, he or she was so friendly, or they're so great at conversation, or man, they're a great friend of mine, or they seem like they would be, me and this person would really hit it off. We would really get along. I could talk to this person all day. Maybe I should hire them. Maybe they should be my business partner. Maybe I should let them be the CEO of this company that I've started. Don't just look at your emotions to make that decision. You also need to look at the data. The data is that person's track record. In other words, here's the question that you ask about another person. What has this individual done in aggregate? Not just what they did in one place, not just what's the big shiny thing on their resume that made them stand out, but look at the big picture of everything this person has done and ask yourself, what is the big picture telling me? If I look at everything this person has contributed and or taken away from the world, what is it telling me? Had this person done fill in the blank, if you're trying to look for someone who can do fill in the blank, then ask yourself, has this person done it in the past? Have they already demonstrated that they can be skilled at this thing? If this person was on trial in court, for example, any of you ever been to a court trial or seen one on TV or in a movie? You see how sometimes when a person's on the defense, they're being prosecuted, they bring up a whole bunch of things they call it character witnesses. What's a character witness? Is a person who knows that person who's on trial, who comes up and speaks to, this is what this person has done, this is the effect this person has had on the world, at least in that small part. And the point of doing that, having a character witness, the purpose is to make that person look good based on whatever charge they are facing, to make that person look good, to hopefully paint a better aggregate picture of what this person is about so that the data as a whole looks good, despite the fact of whatever it is that led to them being in that courtroom in the first place. That's what a character witness does. You want to paint a picture of a person as a whole, not just looking at one isolated thing they did that might have been bad or one thing they did that might have been good. You want to look at everything they've done. It's especially true when you're evaluating someone for any type of business. It's not just about your feelings and your emotions. I read this book by Charles Barkley. I think it was the first book he put out. It was called Outrageous. Came out in the 90s. And he talked about how his first sports agent robbed Charles Barkley of a whole bunch of money. And Charles took blame for it. He took responsibility for his agent robbing him of a whole bunch of money. And he said, the biggest mistake that I made in hiring this guy who became this crook agent was that he was my friend. I liked him because we got along, because we would hang out. We were like buddies. But that's a bad way to make a business decision, is to choose somebody because they're your buddy, because they're your friend. Because all the time this guy was being my friend, he was robbing me blind because I wasn't paying attention. Charles Barkley didn't have trained eyes. But you know the thing about getting robbed or having somebody go behind your back or facing a serious loss in life, it trains your eyes really quickly. It's an amazing thing. It's a miraculous thing that happens when we go through setbacks in life, how quickly our eyes get trained. We start noticing things that we never noticed before, just like that fast. That's how quickly you can work on your game when you go through setbacks. We're going to be talking about that soon. So what we're talking about here, again, is looking at the overall picture of a person. So when you're evaluating people, Even when you're evaluating someone who you may not get along with so much on a personal level, you got to ask yourself a question. What is this person's results? And it's funny, I was just talking to two different people today when I'm recording. It was the first person that I was talking to was a really friendly individual, really got along, type of person that we were talking about business. This is the type of person I would hang out with outside of business. This is the type of person I would call and say, yo, let's go to lunch. Really friendly, good person. And they were referring me to another individual. This person wasn't as friendly, a little bit colder, not as personable, but based on the recommendations that I've heard from others about this second individual, this colder individual, person B, that their aggregate track record is this person produces results. So while the emotional side of me might say person A is the better choice, the get things done, the business side of me says person B is the better choice. So this is the thing that you need to keep in mind, that it may not be the person that you're so friendly with or so jovial or you connect with so much. That may not be the best decision when you're trying to get a result. If your result is to make friends, then yes, by all means follow that process. But if the result is to actually get a result, something that goes on paper, then maybe you need to pick the person who maybe is not so much your friend. Because the person who's not so much your friend doesn't care that much about your feelings, at least as much as somebody else. They'll be willing to tell you what you actually need to hear. They'll be willing to throw the data in your face. So you see how all of this stuff goes together. When evaluating people, even if you don't like them so much, ask yourself about their results. When the Chicago Bulls in 1995, after they got eliminated from the playoffs, after Michael Jordan made his comeback, they knew they needed some fresh blood on the team. They were thinking about signing this guy who had played for the Detroit Pistons, who had been a pest to the Bulls in years past. He went by the name of Dennis Rodman. And the Bulls weren't sure about signing Dennis Rodman because Dennis Rodman and the Pistons had been the arch rivals of the Chicago Bulls for several years back before the Bulls actually broke through and started winning championships. And Dennis Rodman had been one of the main people on that team whose job it was to stop Michael Jordan and beat up on Scottie Pippen on the court to stop those guys from winning basketball games. So the Bulls players, they weren't that fond of Dennis Rodman as a person or as a basketball player. So when the Bulls management was thinking about signing Dennis Rodman, they knew they were going to have to clear it with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Like, if these guys don't want Dennis Rodman on the team, we're not signing Dennis Rodman. These guys are our franchise. But the reason why Dennis Rodman ended up signing with the Chicago Bulls is because you got to think about who we're talking about here. Michael Jordan, episode 1217, Virtual Mentors I did on Michael Jordan. What was Michael Jordan's definite chief aim? What business was Michael Jordan in? Michael Jordan was in the business of winning basketball games. So Michael Jordan didn't look at Dennis Rodman and say, and let me tell you, this is what most people do. He didn't look at Dennis Rodman and say, do I like Dennis Rodman? Would I be friends with Dennis Rodman? Would I hang out with Dennis Rodman? Do I have a positive feeling about, do I have positive, reviews about this guy and the encounters that we've had in the past? Do I feel, do I look back on the times that I've seen him and think fondly on it? He would have no's to all of those questions. All those questions will be answered, hell no. But Michael Jordan understood. He was mature enough to understand that my business is not making friends. My business is not, do I like you? My business is not, am I fond of you? My business is not where we hang out off the court and play golf and, play around with each other's kids. It's not the business that I'm in. The business that I'm in, Michael Jordan thought to himself, is winning basketball games. So the question he had to ask himself is this: does this player, being Dennis Rodman, get me closer to winning a championship? Yes or no? The answer was absolutely yes. Dennis Rodman was one of the best defensive players and best rebounders, not only in the league, but in the history of basketball. So Michael Jordan said, all right, can this guy get me closer to winning? Yes. All right, do I like him personally? No, but he gets me closer to winning. All right, we taking him. Dennis Rodman signed with the Chicago Bulls. They won the next 3 championships. In sports, we have averages. We got these statistics, right? Give you your average, your points per game average, how many assists you get every game, your free throw percentage. Now we even go deeper with what we call analytics, which is the same as statistics. It's just a deeper level of statistics. This is more statistics, and it tells us an even clearer picture of what exactly is going on. Now, contrary to what the talking head TV shows have you thinking about sports, a person's career is not, we don't have a referendum on somebody's career based off of one game. These days with the talking head TV shows that come on every single day, they have to come up with new content all the time. They make you believe that this one game or this 1-2 game stretch or this 1 week of football all of a sudden just tells you everything about a person's career. The reason, and then the very next week, you notice that game now is the one that tells you everything. You notice that 20 games later, that game is the one that's going to tell us everything about this person. Notice how they just keep moving the goalpost on you. If you pay attention, you notice these things. Trained eyes and trained ears notice these things. The reason that they tell you that is because they got to keep you watching the show. But what you need to understand is the overall referendum on you, your career, your business, your life, who you are as a person is not based off of any one experience, even though that can take up a whole lot of space in people's minds, depending on how those individuals think. Understand that the aggregate is what people have to look at. A wise individual is always looking at the overall picture, not just the small picture, but the overall. Now, Dennis Rodman is a guy he was covering his hair. He was known to have an eccentric personality. He wasn't much of a guy. He wasn't much of a team camaraderie type of dude. So he had a little bit of a bad reputation, and not many teams in NBA even wanted to touch Dennis Rodman, the player. They didn't even want to sign this guy to a contract, even though he was the best rebounder and one of the best defenders in all of basketball. And rebounding and defense help you win games. But people didn't want to sign him because of all these other things, these side things. But again, Michael Jordan, he wasn't looking at the side things. He wasn't looking at the emotional things. He was looking at the business. What business am I in? Winning championships. He signed a guy who helped him win more championships. Fans in sports, as we talk more about sports here, fans tend to point to one stat about a player. If you're a fan of an individual player and someone asks you to defend that player, usually you'll point out one stat or one thing that this person's done or one great thing that they achieved as if to defend them or to tout them. But a smart analyst sees much more than just that one stat or that one skill that that player has or the one thing this person does great. There are a few players who do multiple things great, but a lot of people, individuals, I'm using this example just to get this point across, a lot of individuals, maybe you, we like to look at one thing about a person, whether it's something that we like about them or something that we dislike about them, as a reason to raise them up or a reason to put them down. No, look at this thing, look at this. And you just keep emphasizing that one thing. For example, there's a guy, and before I give you the example, the other type of people, hopefully you become this person on the heels of what you're hearing here today. You understand the thing that gets everybody all excited and emotional, again, in a positive or a negative way. But you understand that the big picture is what really matters. That you really got to look at the big picture of any individual to know what they're really about. You can't just go off of the big shiny object, the bright shiny object that has everybody else's attention. For example, right now in the basketball world, at least as of this recording, there's a player by the name of Carmelo Anthony. He's unsigned, at least as of today when I'm recording this in early November. Carmelo is going to be a Hall of Famer in the NBA. He's been one of the top scorers in the NBA for many years when he was actually employed and playing. Played for some teams that were competitive, but he never quite got over the hump. Never played in the NBA Finals. Hasn't won a championship. He's been an All-Star several times. Played for Team USA several times and won gold medals. Been a great player there. But right now he doesn't have a contract. And a lot of Carmelo Anthony fans, and I see this on social media all the time, they say things like, well, how can player X, some random guy, be signed to a contract, but Carmelo Anthony's not signed? Carmelo's better than this guy, this guy, this guy. Carmelo Anthony's better than 200 guys who are in the NBA right now. How can Carmelo Anthony not have a deal? People are just flummoxed by this whole thing of Carmelo Anthony not being signed. But I read an article about Carmelo for his last days on the last team he was on, which was the Houston Rockets, again, as of this recording. And one of the things that gets pointed out in that article that most people don't talk about is, well, when Carmelo Anthony was on the court, he was a liability defensively. In other words, anytime he was on the court, his team lost those minutes that he played. So in other words, the more minutes Carmelo Anthony plays, the worse your chances of actually winning a game. And this is not my personal opinion. This is proven statistically. It bears itself out in the analytics. So people who are big fans of Melo, who get emotional defending him, he listen to what I just said and say, well, fuck that, Dre. He's better than this player, this player, this player, this player. They would go right back to the same argument because they want to go off of how they feel instead of going off the data. The data says this guy being on the court is making our team worse. That's what it was. That is what I believe is keeping the guy from signing the contract right now. Now, maybe someone will say, hey, maybe we can overcome that and make it work with this guy anyway. We'll see. But that's what I think is really keeping him from, and I got to say again, as of this recording, being signed. By the time this comes out, maybe he'll have a contract. But the whole point that I'm making here is you got to look at the data, not just your emotions when you're looking overall at people. People who make their decisions based on emotions, based on who they like, based on how you feel, often leads to, sometimes it can lead to good decisions, but often it'll lead to good decisions by luck, not because you made a wise calculation. As they say, even a broken clock is right at least 2 times a day. But often it'll lead you to a bad place and you won't even understand why. Why? Because you're not paying attention to your data. Let's recap today's topic, which is how to assess people. The saying goes, when a person shows you who they are, believe them. So today is about seeing who people actually are and learning how to deal with them. Point number 1, people rarely change very much. A person can gain skills, get smarter, work on their game, get better at what they do, but rarely do any of us change fundamentally at our core. We don't get rehabilitated. We can change in action, but we don't rehabilitate ourselves at our core, our characters as people. So what you need to start looking at, you need to develop the trained eyes to really see the essence of a person, not just what they're showing you on the surface. And the challenge with that is everybody's really good at showing you what they want you to see on the surface. Point number 2, values over skills. Every one of us has been into a retail business where it seemed like the employee just didn't really want to be there. So the question is, how'd they even get the job, and why doesn't the boss fire them? I'm sure the boss has noticed these same problems that you notice. Why do they keep having the job? Why do they keep getting paid? It's because a lot of people think good people are hard to find. And it's true, good people are hard to find, but they're not impossible to find. What people need to start doing when you're looking to build your team, whether that be your team of friends, your team of a family, your team in business, your team of people to work for you, is look for people with the right attitude and then teach them the skills that they need. Person with the right attitude can learn skills. Person with the wrong attitude, no matter how much skill they have, you don't need them around. The more skills they have, the more dangerous they will be to your organization. Point number 3, look at the data and not just your emotions. In other words, look at a person's track record. What has this person done in aggregate? Do they have proven results for what you're actually looking for? Paint a picture of the whole of a person, not just the one thing you love about them or the one thing that you hate about them. When evaluating people, even people you don't like so much personally, ask yourself, can this person help me achieve a result? The biggest challenge a lot of people have in getting the right people around them is that we choose people that we like instead of choosing people who are effective. That's a big one right there. Michael Jordan, when he was asked, the Chicago Bulls asked him, hey, should we sign this guy, Dennis Rodman? Even though Jordan maybe didn't like Rodman much from his days back when Rodman was with the Detroit Pistons, Michael Jordan knew what business he was in. Episode 1273, what business are you in? Michael Jordan was in the business of winning championships. And he knew Dennis Rodman can help him win championships. He said, sign that guy. He will help me achieve what I want to achieve in my business. What business are you in? And how are you deciding who to deal with? Are you in the business of just being friendly with everybody? Or are you in the business of achieving some actual results? These are questions you got to be asking yourself. Work on your game. Dre all day.